Assalamu alaikum, this is Kaysarul. Today my presentation topic is Khilafat Movement. The Khilafat, the pan-Islamic movement to save Ottoman Empire. Khilafat movement was a religious-political movement launched by Muslims of India. It was a very important event in the political history of India. The Muslims of India had a very great regard for the Khilafat, which was held by the Ottoman Empire. It was important for the retention of the Ottoman Caliphate and for not handing over the control of the Muslim holy places to non-Muslims. During the World War I, the Ottoman Empire, presently known as Turkey, joined the war in favor of Germany. But Turkey and Germany lost the war, and a fact commonly known as Istanbul Accord was concluded between the Allied forces on 3rd November 1980. According to this fact, the territories of Turkey were to be divided among the France, Greece, and Britain. As it began to lose the war, concerns were expressed in India about the future of the Turkey. It was a peak period from 1919 to 1920, casting demonstration, boycott, and other pressure by two major communities, the Hindus and the Muslims. Being brothers, the Indian Muslim realized their religious duty to help the Muslims country. It was an extraterritorial attachment based on Islam. Another factor same to the first was that the Indian Muslim considered Ottoman Caliphate a symbol of unity of the Muslim world as Ummah. During the World War, Indian Muslims were in a very awkward position because they had a very deep-rooted devotion to the Caliphate. They had profound respect for the holy institution. Therefore, their support to British government was subject to safeguard and the protection of holy places of Turkey, and on the condition that Turkey should not deprive of its territory. But the British government could not fulfill both of these promises. The Treaty of Sevres 1920 was imposed on Turkey, and its territory like Samarna, Thrace, and Anatolia were wrested from it and distributed among European countries. A wave of anger swept across the Muslim world, and the Indian Muslim rose against the British government. Muslim leaders like Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Maulana Muhammad Ali Zohar, Maulana Shaukat Ali, and others reacted against British government policy and were put behind the bars. Thus, Muslims organized a mass movement which came to known as Khilafat Movement. The aims of this movement were to protect the holy places of Turkey, to restore the territories of Turkey, and to restore the Ottoman Empire. In December 1990, the Khilafat Committee and the Congress held their meetings simultaneously at Amritsar, and a delegation was prepared which was sent to England under the leadership of Maulana Muhammad Ali Zohar to see the British Prime Minister, cabinet member, and members of the parliament, and to explain the Indian point of view regarding the Khilafat. The delegation visited England in 1920. The leaders of delegation addressed the House of Commons and saw the British Prime Minister Lord George, who paid no heed to the delegation demand. The delegation stayed at London for 8 months and won many hearts and sympathies of people in Britain and delivering speeches. However, the delegation returned to India unsuccessfully in October 1920. After the unsuccessful visit to England, the leaders of Khilafat movement realized the fact that British were not in the mood to help them, so they decided to launch a movement of non-cooperation. When the leaders of Khilafat movement announced the non-cooperation movement, the Congress extended its full support to the Khilafat movement. The leaders of two parties met at Amritsar and resolved to launch a countrywide agitation under the leadership of Mr. Gandhi. The agitation was against the British government. The following points were included in it: renunciation of government title, boycott of legislation and court, withdrawal of students from educational institutions, resigning from government posts, general civil obedience, etc. As a result of the proclamation of Fatwa, hundreds of thousands of people returned the titles and stopped sending their children to government schools and colleges. All these highly educated young men who could have rose to high government positions bade farewell to their bright future and accepted ordinary jobs in the private sector. The vacuum created in the government offices was joyfully filled in by Hindus, while the Muslim government employees willingly accepted the starvation for the sake of the Muslim cause. The Khilafat movement came to an end when thousands of Indians were put behind the bars. The leaders, in spite of their best effort, could not maintain the Hindu-Muslim unity. One of the main reasons which caused a death blow to Khilafat movement was the indirect announcement of Gandhi to discontinue non-cooperation movement. Gandhi used an incident of arson on February 1922 when a violent mob set on fire a police chowki at Chorachuri at district Gorakhpur, burning 21 constables to death as an excuse to call off non-cooperation movement. It adversely affected the Khilafat movement, which thought to be an integral part of the movement. In 1924, Kemal Atatürk set up a government on democratic basis in Turkey by abolishing Khilafat as a system of government, which served a finishing blow to Khilafat movement in India, and people had lost whatever interest that they had in the movement. Now let's talk about the reason and why it ended actually abruptly. The abolition of Khilafat by Kemal Atatürk was a serious blow on the Khilafat movement in the subcontinent, and he exiled Sultan Abdul Majid, a helpless caliph, and abolished Caliphate as an institution. Due to this, all agitational activities came to an end in the Indian subcontinent. Another reason was Hijrat movement, which made the Muslim relations with Khilafat movement due to the declaration of India as Darul Harab. A large number of Muslims migrated from Sindh and NWFE to Afghanistan. The Afghan authorities did not allow them to cross the border. After this tragic event, those who had advocated the Hijrat movement came to realize their mistake, and which were resulted in the failure of the movement. There is a saying that almost 18,000 people tried to migrate from India to Afghanistan, but due to the Afghan government didn't let them enter into their territory, they had to return back. Another important reason was the tragic incident of village Chorachuri. When Khilafat movement became mature and was reaching its climax, a tragic incident took place in the village upon of Chorachuri, in which police opened fire on the procession of local residents. The agitated mob in counteraction set the police station on fire, which resulted 21 police constables were burnt alive. Due to this incident, Ali brother and Muslim leader were arrested, and Mr. Gandhi put the foot of the movement. As the consequence, the movement lost its intensity. In the conclusion, I would like to say the Khilafat movement was started to safeguard the Khilafat in Turkey, an issue which essentially belonged to the Muslims. By the involvement of Hindus, the movement grew forceful, and there was a possibility of meeting the movement with success. The British government was the common enemy of the Muslims and Hindus. That is why both the nations continued united effort against it. But the difference between the Hindus and Muslims became even more pronounced, and many other events showed that opposition of Hindus to British government was not lasting. When Khilafat movement reached at its success in the Hindus, especially Mr. Gandhi gave up the movement and left Muslims alone and caused the failure of the movement. The Khilafat movement proved that Hindus and Muslims were two different nations, as they could not continue the unity and could not live together. The Khilafat movement created political consciousness among the Indian Muslims, which inspired them to continue another movement for their independence. Thus they started Pakistan movement. And thank you. That is the end of my presentation.